The space near the asteroid field was quiet and dark. Commander Taejin stood in the command center of the Vorthon warship, looking at the screens that showed everything happening around them. The ship was big and powerful, with weapons that could destroy almost anything. His mandibles clicked together as he studied the sensor information coming from the detection systems. He had been fighting the humans for 3 years now, and he understood their military strategies very well. Lieutenant Hyejin sat at the targeting station, her long fingers moving across the controls. She was one of the best weapons officers in the entire Vorthon fleet, and Taejin trusted her completely. The information on her screen showed a large ship moving slowly through space. It was not moving very fast, and it did not seem to be trying to escape or hide. The ship had medical symbols painted on its sides. These symbols meant it was a healing ship, a place where the sick and injured went to get better. In Vorthon military thinking, this meant it was a target. Taejin had learned long ago that in war, you had to destroy things that helped your enemy. If the humans could not heal their soldiers and their workers, then the humans would become weaker. The logic was simple and clear. Taejin had never questioned it before, and he did not question it now. "The ship is called the HMS Mercy," Hyejin reported. She was reading information from the human communication channels that the Vorthans could listen to. "It is broadcasting on medical frequencies. There are no weapons detected on the vessel." Taejin nodded. He had expected this. Hospital ships did not need weapons because they were not supposed to fight. That was the whole point. They existed only to help people who were hurt or sick. From Taejin's perspective, this made them even more valuable as targets. Destroy the hospitals, and the humans would have nowhere to take their wounded. It was efficient military strategy. "Any human war vessels nearby?" Taejin asked. He did not want to waste his weapons on a target if there was a chance that human fighters would come to defend it. "No ships detected within 50,000 kilometers," Hyejin answered. "The area is clear, Commander. This is an easy target." Taejin felt something like satisfaction move through his chest. In 3 years of fighting, he had learned to recognize this feeling. It was the feeling of knowing that his strategy was working. The humans were weak because they spread their ships too thin. They tried to protect too many things at once. They did not focus their strength like the Vorthons did. "Weapons lock acquired on the target," Hyejin said. Her voice was calm and professional. "All systems are ready, waiting for your command, Commander." The bridge of the warship was very quiet. All the officers and crew members were watching and waiting. Every display screen showed information about the HMS Mercy. They could see the ship clearly now, and it was definitely a large vessel. It had the kind of design that the Vorthans had learned to recognize as human medical ships. The shapes were all wrong for a war vessel. There were too many windows, too many areas that looked like they should be full of equipment and technology rather than weapons and armor. Taejin looked at the image of the ship for a long moment. He thought about the human command structure and how they made decisions. He thought about the fact that somewhere inside that ship, there were probably human commanders just like him, making plans and trying to figure out how to win the war. Destroying their hospital would make it harder for them to succeed. It would force them to accept that their methods were weak and that the Vorthon way was stronger. "Proceed with the attack," Taejin commanded. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This was not a question or a suggestion. This was an order, and everyone on the bridge understood that they would follow it without hesitation or doubt. Hyejin's fingers moved across her controls. "Firing main cannon in 3, 2, 1. The ship shook slightly as the main cannon released its energy. A beam of pure destructive power shot out through the darkness of space, moving faster than thought. The beam was bright blue and hot enough to melt through almost any material that humans had ever created. The HMS Mercy had no shields, no weapons, no way to defend itself. The beam struck the side of the ship and burned through the hull like a knife cutting through soft fabric. The explosion came immediately after, a bright orange and red flower of fire that bloomed in the darkness. "Direct hit," Hyejin reported. The instrument showed her the damage that had been done. "The target is losing atmosphere. Life support systems are failing. Multiple hull breaches detected." The crew members on the bridge felt something that might have been approval or satisfaction. They had completed their mission. They had eliminated a target that was supporting their enemies. In the Vorthon way of thinking, this was good. This was what warriors did. But Taijin found himself looking at the screens a little longer than necessary. The ship was still moving, still falling apart slowly in the vacuum of space. There were lights still on inside some parts of it. That meant there were still systems running. That meant there were still people alive in there. He did not think about this for very long. He turned away from the screens and walked toward his ready room. Behind him, the crew was already moving on to other tasks. The attack was over. The target had been destroyed. There was nothing left to do but report the success to the fleet command and continue the war. What Taijin did not know, could not have known, was that inside the HMS Mercy people were dying, not soldiers, but doctors and nurses and medical workers. There was a surgeon named Dr. Minho who had been operating on a small child when the attack happened. The child was a girl named Mina, only 5 years old. She had come from a mining colony where there had been an accident, and she needed special surgery that only the hospitals in space could provide. Dr. Minho had his hands inside her body, working carefully to fix something that had been broken inside her. When the attack happened, everything changed in an instant. The ship shook violently. The lights went out. Dr. Minho found himself falling, his patient falling with him. All his training, all his years of experience meant nothing when the floor disappeared underneath him. There were screams all around him, sounds of confusion and pain and fear. The ship was falling apart around them all, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Taijin did not hear these screams. He did not see the faces of the people who were dying. He did not know that he had just changed many lives forever with a single command. In his mind, he had simply done his job as a commander. He had destroyed a military target. He had advanced the interests of his people and his fleet. He did not know that this decision would come back to haunt him, to change his understanding of war itself, or to force him to question everything he believed about strength and victory and what it meant to be a warrior. All he knew was that the attack had been successful, and the HMS Mercy was no longer a problem for the Vorthon Fourth Fleet. The ship fell into pieces in the darkness of space, and no one on the Vorthon warship saw the moment when it finally stopped falling and became nothing but debris and loss. 3 weeks passed after the attack on the HMS Mercy. Commander Taijin had moved on to other battles and other targets. The Vorthon fleet was pushing deeper into human territory, and there were many more hospitals to destroy. The strategy was working well. Human medical services were being disrupted. Humans were dying from diseases and injuries that they could have survived if they had access to proper medical care. Taijin saw this as proof that his methods were correct. The humans were becoming weaker. Victory was coming. Then a message came through the communication systems. It was from the neutral station at Kepler 9, a place where different species met to trade and sometimes to talk about peace. The message was from the human military. They wanted to meet with Commander Taijin. They wanted to discuss what had happened to the HMS Mercy. Taijin was surprised by this request, but not concerned. He had destroyed many human ships. He did not understand why this particular attack would be different from all the others. Perhaps the humans were finally ready to admit that their way of fighting was inferior. Perhaps they wanted to discuss surrender terms. Taijin decided to attend the meeting. He would bring guards, of course, but he expected this to be straightforward. He traveled to Kepler 9 with a small security team. The station was large and busy, full of different types of aliens and humans, and Vorthons all trying to trade with each other. Taijin walked through the corridors with his guards following behind him. Many creatures moved out of his way. The Vorthons were known to be warriors, and warriors received respect. The meeting room was neutral territory, controlled by neither humans nor Vorthons. Inside, Taijin found 2 humans waiting for him. One was Captain Hyunai, a human military officer. She was tall and strong, and Taijin could see that she was a warrior like himself. The other was a man in medical clothing. His name was Dr. Minho, and he had a regenerative sleeve on his left arm. His face looked tired and sad. Taijin did not understand why. Captain Hyunai stood when Taijin entered the room. She did not bow or show fear. She looked at him directly with eyes that burned with something Taijin could not quite identify. "Commander Taijin," she said, "thank you for coming to this meeting. I want to talk with you about the HMS Mercy. That was my hospital ship. Those were my medical personnel. Those were patients under my protection." Taijin felt confident. This was what he had expected. The humans wanted to discuss the attack. He could explain his military reasoning. He could make them understand that it was a necessary action in war. The HMS Mercy was a legitimate military target, Taijin said. He spoke in a clear, strong voice. It was supporting human military operations. The destruction of the ship was a sound military decision. But Captain Hyunei did not seem to accept this explanation. Instead, she looked at Dr. Minho, and then she continued speaking. "You destroyed a hospital ship," she said. "The HMS Mercy operated under the Geneva Accords. Do you know what that is, Commander?" Taijin had heard of the Geneva Accords. It was some kind of human agreement about how to fight wars. But Taijin did not believe it was important. Wars were simple. You destroyed your enemy's ability to fight. You were strong, and your enemy was weak. There were no agreements that could change this basic truth. The Geneva Accords are an agreement between species, Captain Hyunai explained. She was speaking slowly, as if Taijin might not understand her words. It says that hospitals are safe places. Medical facilities cannot be attacked. Medical workers cannot be killed. This is a law that your people agreed to follow. Medical facilities support military operations, Taijin said. This makes them valid targets. Dr. Minho suddenly spoke. His voice was quiet and sad. "I was operating on a child when your attack happened," he said. "A 5-year-old girl named Min-Ah. She had come from the mining colony. She needed surgery for a blood disorder. I was trying to save her life." Taijin said nothing. He did not see how this information changed anything. "She is dead now," Dr. Minho continued. His hands were shaking. "She died because of the attack. I was holding her when the lights went out. She asked me if everything would be okay. I told her yes. I was wrong." Something moved in Taijin's chest, but he pushed it away. This was war. People died in war. That was how things worked. Captain Hyunai opened a tablet computer and showed Taijin a list. 74 patients died in the attack, she said. 43 of them were not soldiers. 21 of them were children. There were also 38 medical workers killed. These were doctors, nurses, and people who worked in hospitals. She continued. On the HMS Mercy, we treated everyone. We treated human soldiers who had been wounded in battle. But we also treated miners and farmers and teachers and children. We treated them because they needed help. We treated them because that is what doctors do. We treated them because your people agreed to let us treat them under the Geneva Accords. Taijin listened to more stories. Nurse G1 had been trying to move a sick patient to safety when the decompression happened. She had shielded the patient with her own body and died from the lack of air. Orderly Sung-ho had been holding a frightened child when the attack came. He had died doing this, trying to make the child feel less afraid. Another doctor named Dr. Hay had been in the emergency room, treating a human soldier who was hurt. She had been trying to save his life. "We were not killing your enemies," Captain Yun-ai said finally. "We were healing. That is what doctors do. You destroyed that. You destroyed the people who were trying to save lives. And you did this while agreeing to protect hospitals." Taijin felt something strange happen inside him. It was not comfortable. It was not something he had ever experienced before. But he could not push it away this time. It was like a weight in his chest that made it hard to think clearly. He thought about the Vorthan hospitals. There were 7 of them in his fleet. They treated over 240,000 people. If the humans decided to follow Vorthan military strategy, they could destroy all of these hospitals tomorrow. They could kill most of the people inside them. They could bring tremendous suffering to the Vorthan people. But the humans had not done this. Even though Taijin's people had attacked them first, even though the humans had suffered great losses, they had not destroyed Vorthan hospitals. They had chosen to follow the Geneva Accords. They had chosen to protect doctors and sick people and children. Taijin did not know what to say. He had come to this meeting expecting to defend his military decisions. But now he was beginning to understand that perhaps he had made a terrible mistake. Not a strategic mistake. A moral one. A mistake that could not be undone. "I will investigate this matter," Taijin said finally. His voice was quieter than before. "You have given me much to consider." He stood and left the meeting room, his guards following behind him. But something had changed inside him. Something that would not go back to the way it had been before. After returning from the meeting at Kepler 9, Commander Taijin ordered a complete investigation into the Vorthan military strategy of attacking human hospitals. He did not announce this investigation to anyone. He kept it secret. He asked Lieutenant Hyajin to search through the military databases and find every record of hospital attacks. He wanted to know exactly how many times his people had done this. The numbers that came back shocked him. 17 hospital ships had been destroyed in the past 3 years. 17, not by accident or mistake, but by deliberate military order. The Vorthan Fleet Command had issued specific instructions to target medical facilities. The strategy had been carefully planned and implemented. The goal was to weaken the humans by making it impossible for them to treat injured people and sick people and, yes, people who were not soldiers at all. Taijin sat alone in his ready room, looking at the list of attacks. Each one had a date and a time and a location. Each one had a list of casualties. The numbers were very large. Hundreds of doctors and nurses and medical workers had been killed. Thousands of patients had died. Many of them were children. Many of them were not soldiers. He thought about Dr. Minho holding a 5-year-old girl while she died. He thought about Nurse Jiwon trying to protect a patient with her own body. He thought about orderly Sung-ho holding a frightened child. These people had not been warriors. They had not been fighting. They had been trying to save lives. The weight in Taijin's chest grew heavier. He called a private meeting with Captain Hyun-ae again. This time they met in a more secure location. Taijin brought no guards. He wanted to learn, not to negotiate or fight. Captain Hyun-ae brought Dr. Minho and several other people who had survived the attack on the HMS Mercy. Dr. Minho explained the Geneva Accords in detail. The agreement had been created hundreds of years ago by humans, but it had been accepted by most species in the galaxy. The basic idea was simple. In war, there are things that are protected. You cannot kill people who are not fighting. You cannot destroy hospitals. You cannot target medical workers. These protections exist because if you take them away, war becomes total destruction. It becomes about killing everyone, not about winning battles. War is terrible, Dr. Minho said, but there are still rules. There are still things that civilized species agree not to do. Hospitals are one of those things. They are places of healing, not places of war. Captain Hyun-ae added more information. She explained that humans had learned these rules through thousands of years of fighting each other. They had learned that when hospitals were destroyed, everyone suffered. When doctors were killed, the survivors could not help anyone. When children died in medical centers, the entire society lost hope. "Your species is still learning these lessons," she said to Taijin, "but you have to learn them quickly, because if you do not, the cycle of violence never ends. Every destroyed hospital creates a reason for more violence. Every dead child creates enemies who want revenge. There is no victory in this kind of warfare. There is only destruction." Taijin listened to stories from the survivors. There was a woman named Yunji who had lost her mother, Nurse Jiwon, in the attack. Yunji was 16 years old. She had wanted to study medicine herself, following in her mother's footsteps, but now her mother was dead because of Taijin's attack. "My mother was not your enemy," Yunji said, her voice filled with pain. "She was a nurse. She helped people. She helped even Vorthan patients sometimes when they came to our medical conferences. She believed that doctors should help everyone, no matter what species they were. Your attack killed that belief. It killed her." There was also an older human named Ji Hyun who had been a patient on the HMS Mercy. He was recovering from a battle wound when the attack came. He survived, but only because Dr. Minho had pulled him into a safe area. He told Taijin about the moment he realized he was going to die. He told him about the fear that came when the lights went out and the ship started to fall apart. "I was already hurt," Ji Hyun said. "I was already suffering. But I thought I would get better. Dr. Minho told me I would live. He promised me that I would see my family again, but then your weapon came and everything changed. I thought about dying. I thought about my family never knowing what happened to me. I thought about the child next to me in the medical ward, a little boy who was only 7 years old. I thought he was going to die too." "Did he?" Taijin asked quietly. "No," Ji Hyun said. "He survived. He is 7 years old, and he watched his friend Min-Ah die from your attack. He watched doctors and nurses try to save her life. He watched them fail. What do you think will happen when that boy grows up, Commander? Do you think he will want peace with the Vorthans?" Taijin had no answer. Dr. Hai, another doctor who had survived the attack, explained what had happened in the medical center when the attack came. She described the operating rooms where surgeries had been happening. She described patients in recovery who suddenly found themselves exposed to the vacuum of space. She described the moment when she realized that there was nothing she could do to save some of the people she had been treating. "I became a doctor to save lives," she said. "Not to build weapons or fight wars, just to save lives. Your attack took that ability away from me. It took it away from everyone on that ship. It took away the lives we were trying to save, and it took away the future lives we would have saved if we had survived." Taijin realized something terrible. The humans were not trying to punish him. They were trying to help him understand what he had done. They were trying to make him see the weight of his actions, and it was working. The weight in his chest was becoming almost unbearable. "I need to know about the other hospitals," he said finally. "The other 16 that we destroyed. I need to know what happened to all the people inside them." Captain Hyune and Dr. Minho exchanged a look. Then Captain Hyune opened a large folder. Inside were lists and pictures and documents about every attack. There were names of dead doctors. There were drawings made by children who had survived. There were letters written by people who had been in hospitals when the attacks came. Taijin spent many hours reading these documents. By the time he finished, he understood something that he had never understood before. He understood that his people, the Vorthans, had been committing terrible crimes against humanity, not military crimes, moral crimes, crimes against the basic idea that healing and life should be protected even in war. "What do I do now?" Taijin asked Dr. Minho. "You tell the truth," Dr. Minho said simply. "You go back to your people and tell them what you have learned. You tell them that we were right to protect hospitals. You tell them that the Geneva Accords exist for a reason, and you help us build something better. You help us make sure this never happens again." Taijin nodded slowly. He knew that this would be difficult. He knew that many of his own people would disagree with him. But he also knew that he had to do this. He had to speak the truth, even if it was painful, even if it changed everything he had believed about war and victory and strength. He was beginning to understand that true strength was not about destroying hospitals. True strength was about protecting them. When Taejin returned to the Vorthon fleet, he immediately called a meeting with the military leadership. He stood in the war room, a place where Vorthon commanders made decisions about battles and strategy. The room was large and dark, lit only by the glow of holographic displays showing the locations of all the ships in the fleet. General Kado was the head of the fleet. He was older than Taejin, with many battle scars on his body. He had fought in more wars than Taejin could count. When Taejin announced that he wanted to discuss the hospital attacks, General Kado smiled. The general believed that Taejin had discovered some new information that would help them destroy even more human medical facilities. "I have a report on the human hospital strategy," Taejin began. He could feel the eyes of all the commanders on him. "Good," General Kado said. "How many more can we destroy?" "We need to stop destroying them," Taejin said. The words felt strange coming out of his mouth, but once he had said them, he could not take them back. The room became very quiet. Every commander stared at Taejin in shock. "What are you saying?" General Kado asked. His voice had become cold and dangerous. Taejin explained what he had learned. He told them about the Geneva Accords. He explained that attacking hospitals was a war crime, not a military strategy. He described the people who had died on the HMS Mercy. He talked about the children and the doctors and the nurses. He talked about a 5-year-old girl named Min-Ah, who had been having surgery when the attack came. "We have been committing war crimes," Taejin said. "We have been destroying medical facilities. We have been killing healers. We have been killing people who were not soldiers. This violates the agreements we made with other species. This is not how warriors should fight." General Kado's mandibles clicked in anger. "You have become soft, Taejin," he said. "The humans have weakened your mind. War is about strength. War is about destroying your enemy. If hospitals help the enemy, then hospitals must be destroyed. This is not complicated." "But we agreed to follow the Geneva Accords," another commander named Jaemin said. He was looking thoughtful. "We made a promise to protect medical facilities. If we break this promise, what does that say about us as a species?" "It says we are practical," General Kado answered. "It says we understand that war sometimes requires difficult choices." "It says we are not trustworthy," Jaemin replied. "If we break this agreement, what agreements can we make in the future? Who will believe us when we promise anything?" Other commanders began to speak. Some agreed with Taejin, others agreed with General Kado. The argument went on for hours. The military leaders were divided. Some of them believed that Taejin had discovered an important truth. Others believed that he was being tricked by the humans. They thought the humans were using sympathy and emotion to make the Vorthons weak. Finally, Taejin told them something that made everyone listen. He asked a simple question. "How many hospital ships do we have in our fleet?" he asked. "7," one of the younger commanders answered. "How many medical workers and support staff do these ships employ?" Taejin continued. "Approximately 180,000, came the answer. Taejin let this number sit in the air for a moment. Then he spoke again. "If the humans followed our military strategy, they could destroy all 7 of our hospital ships tomorrow. They could kill most of these 180,000 people. Many of them are not warriors. Many of them are doctors and nurses and people who work in medical facilities. If the humans attacked us in this way, what would happen to our military? What would happen to our society?" General Kado said nothing. "I will tell you what would happen," Taejin continued. "Our army would fall apart. We would not be able to treat our wounded soldiers. We would not be able to care for our sick. We would lose thousands of soldiers because they could not get medical help. Our entire military structure depends on the protection of our hospitals. The humans know this. But they have not attacked our hospitals, even though we attacked theirs, even though we killed their doctors and nurses and patients. He paused. The humans understand something that we do not understand yet. They understand that protecting hospitals is not weakness. It is the foundation of a strong society. It is the agreement that allows civilized species to fight war in a way that does not destroy everything. Some of the commanders nodded slowly. Some of them were beginning to understand what Tae-jin was saying. General Kato stood up. "I will not accept this," he said. "We are warriors. We are strong. We do not follow human morality. We follow Vorthan's strength." "Strength without honor is just violence," Tae-jin replied. "And violence without rules leads to the destruction of everything. I believe we are better than this." "Then you are no longer fit to command," General Kato said. "You are relieved of duty, Tae-jin. You will be taken into custody pending a court of inquiry." But before the guards could move, Commander Jamin stood up, and then another commander stood up, and then another. By the time Tae-jin looked around the room, more than half of the military leaders were standing with him. "If Tae-jin is being relieved of duty, then so am I," Jamin said, "because I agree with him. We have made a mistake. We need to fix it." General Kato's face became very dark with anger. But he was outnumbered. He could not force the commanders to do what he wanted. "This is mutiny," he said quietly. "No," Tae-jin replied. "This is the military finally understanding its responsibility. Our job is not just to win battles. Our job is to protect our people, and that means protecting the things that keep our people alive. It means honoring agreements. It means being trustworthy." Over the next several days, the Vorthan fleet began to change. New orders went out to all the ships. Hospital facilities were to be protected, not attacked. Medical personnel were to be respected, not targeted. The Geneva Accords were to be followed exactly as they were written. Not every Vorthan accepted this change. Some commanders still believed in the old way of fighting, but the majority of the fleet understood what Tae-jin had discovered. They understood that true strength came from honor, not from cruelty. They understood that protecting hospitals was the right thing to do. Tae-jin was not made a hero for this. Instead, he was reassigned. He was given a new position, one where he would oversee medical compliance across the entire fleet. It was not a promotion. It was understood as a punishment and a way to make him take responsibility for his actions, but Tae-jin accepted it without complaint. He knew that this was the right thing to do. He thought often about Min-ah, the 5-year-old girl who had been on the HMS Mercy. He thought about the moment when Dr. Minho had been operating on her, trying to save her life. He thought about the fact that he had taken that away. He thought about the thousands of other patients whose lives had been taken by Vorthan attacks. He could not give those lives back, but he could make sure that no more lives were taken in the same way. He could make sure that hospitals remained safe places. He could make sure that healers like Dr. Minho were protected and respected, and he could spend the rest of his life trying to make up for the terrible mistake he had made. It was not enough, but it was all he could do. The peace negotiations took many months to complete. The humans presented their demands clearly. They wanted a ceasefire. They wanted reparations for the people who had died and the hospitals that had been destroyed. They wanted the Vorthan fleet to formally join and follow the Geneva Accords, and they wanted a truth and reconciliation tribunal where people could tell what had happened and where responsibility could be assigned. Tae-jin supported all of these demands. He knew that the Vorthans owed the humans a debt that could never be fully repaid. But they could try. They could at least acknowledge what they had done. They could at least take responsibility for their actions. The most difficult part was the tribunal. Tae-jin had to stand before a group of judges and describe every decision he had made. He had to talk about the order to attack the HMS Mercy. He had to talk about the 17 hospital ships that had been destroyed while he held a command position. He had to listen to people describe what it had been like to be inside those ships when the attacks happened. Many Vorthon officers refused to attend the tribunal. They believed that the whole process was unfair. They believed that the Vorthons were being punished for simply being strong warriors. But Taijin attended every session. He answered every question honestly. He did not try to make excuses. He did not try to explain why the attacks were necessary. He simply told the truth. Captain Hyun A testified about the military situation. She described how the human forces had never retaliated by attacking Vorthon hospitals, even though they could have done so. She explained that the humans had maintained their commitment to the Geneva Accords, even when they were being violated by the Vorthans. "We could have destroyed your hospitals," she said to Tae-jin during her testimony. "We could have killed your doctors and nurses. We could have made your soldiers suffer from lack of medical care. But we did not do this. We chose to follow the rules that we all agreed to follow. We chose to be better than violence." Dr. Minho testified next. He was no longer a young man. The trauma of the attack had aged him. His hair was now white, and his hands still shook sometimes when he spoke about the HMS Mercy. "I was a surgeon," he said to the tribunal. "I spent my whole life learning how to save lives. I spent my whole life helping people. And then in one moment, all of that was taken away. I did not lose my ability to be a surgeon, but I lost the ability to use it on my own ship. I lost my colleagues. I lost my patients. I lost the future." He paused. "But I did not lose my belief in healing. I did not lose my belief that there is something more important than victory in war. There is humanity. There is the idea that some things should be protected. Hospitals are one of those things." Then he said something that made Taijin's entire body go rigid with emotion. "I forgive Commander Taijin," Dr. Minho said. "Not because what he did was right. It was wrong, terribly wrong. But I forgive him because he has learned the truth. He has accepted responsibility. He has changed." That is what forgiveness means. It means understanding that people can change. It means giving them the opportunity to be better than they were. Taijin felt something break open inside his chest. It was not pain, exactly. It was something more complex than pain. It was guilt and shame and gratitude all mixed together. It was the overwhelming realization that he had been forgiven by the person he had hurt the most. Dr. Minho had lost people he loved on the HMS Mercy, yet he was forgiving Tae-jin for his role in those deaths. Yoon-ji also testified. She was older now, in her early 20s. She had decided to become a doctor, just like her mother had been. She explained that she was doing this in honor of Nurse Ji-won to continue her mother's work of healing and helping people. "I was angry at the Vorthans for a long time," she said. "I wanted revenge, but my mother would not have wanted that. My mother was a nurse. She helped people who were hurt. She would want me to do the same thing. So I am becoming a doctor, even though a Vorthon attack took my mother away from me." She looked at Taejin. "I do not forgive you for what you did," she said, "but I will not hate you for your whole life. I hope you understand what you took from us. I hope you spend the rest of your life making sure it never happens again. That is all I can ask." The tribunal issued its findings after 3 months of testimony. It determined that Tae-jin and other Vorthon officers had committed war crimes by attacking hospitals in violation of the Geneva Accords. It ordered reparations to be paid to the families of those who had died. It ordered that Vorthon hospital ships would receive additional protection and that medical compliance would be monitored by both species working together. It also recognized that Taijin had chosen to change after learning the truth. It recognized that he had helped bring other Vorthon leaders to understand their mistakes. This did not excuse his actions, but it meant that his punishment would be measured and give him a chance to serve the cause of peace. Taijin was reassigned to oversee medical cooperation between the Vorthon and human forces. He spent his days in meetings and inspections. He made sure that the new protocols were being followed. He helped design new hospital ships that would serve both species. He trained young officers on the Geneva Accords and on the importance of protecting medical facilities. It was not easy work. Many Vorthons resented him for his role in accepting peace terms that they felt were too harsh. Some humans did not trust him, believing that he was still a danger despite his change of heart. But Taijin did not complain. He understood that this was his responsibility. He understood that he would spend the rest of his life paying for the mistakes he had made. 2 years after the ceasefire, the new hospital ship HMS Accord was completed. It was a joint project between humans and Vorthons. The captain was human. The first officer was Vorthon. The medical director was shared between both species. It was uncomfortable for some people, but it worked. The ship represented something new. It represented the idea that humans and Vorthons could work together to save lives instead of taking them. Taijin stood in the briefing room of the new ship on the day of its departure. Around him were doctors and nurses from both species. They were standing together, wearing the same uniform. They were ready to go out into space and help people who needed help, without asking what species those people belonged to. Dr. Minho was standing near the front of the room. His arm was fully healed now, though it still bothered him sometimes. He looked at Taijin and nodded slightly. It was a small gesture, but it carried a lot of meaning. It meant that the past was not forgotten, but that the future could be different. "This ship represents something important," Taijin said to the assembled crew. His voice was calm and strong. "It represents the idea that we can work together. It represents the idea that healing is more important than fighting. It represents the agreement we have made, both with each other and with ourselves, that some things must be protected." He paused. "In this ship, you will treat every patient who comes to you. You will treat them with skill and with compassion. You will treat them regardless of what species they belong to. You will treat them because that is what doctors do. You will treat them because that is the right thing to do. You will treat them because we have all agreed that hospitals are sacred places." The crew nodded. They understood what they were being asked to do. "The HMS Accord will carry medical supplies to settlements ravaged by war," Taijin continued. "It will treat the injured and the sick. It will bring hope to people who have lost hope. And it will show that even species that have fought terrible wars can learn to work together in service of something greater than themselves." The ship lifted off from the station and began its journey into space. In the memorial garden below, Yunji placed fresh flowers before her mother's name on a stone monument. A young Vorthon officer named Kesh placed flowers before the names of his family members who had died in the war. They stood together, tending the memory of those who had been lost. They did not speak. They did not need to. They both understood that they were part of something larger than themselves. They were part of a future that honored the past while building something better. Taijin watched from the window of the station as the HMS Accord moved into the distance. He thought about Mina, the 5-year-old girl who had died on the HMS Mercy. He thought about all the other patients and doctors and nurses who had been lost when hospitals were attacked. He thought about the weight of responsibility that he would carry for the rest of his life. But he also thought about the future. He thought about the young doctors and nurses from both species who were working together on the HMS Accord. He thought about the settlements that ship would help. He thought about the lives that would be saved because people had chosen to protect hospitals instead of destroying them. It was not enough to make up for what had been lost, but it was something. And perhaps, over time, it would be enough to show that change was possible. It would be enough to show that even the worst mistakes could lead to something better if people were willing to learn and willing to serve the cause of healing instead of the cause of destruction.